Have you ever walked past a car that looks exactly like one you used to own and felt that sudden pang in your chest? Maybe you sold your first car years ago, or perhaps you let go of a beloved vehicle just last month, and now you cannot stop thinking about it. This feeling is far more common than most people realize, and the psychology behind it reveals something fascinating about how our minds work. When someone sells a car and then regrets it, they are not simply missing a mode of transportation. Something much deeper is happening in their brain. Something that connects to how humans form attachments, make decisions, and construct their sense of self. Understanding this process can help anyone make better choices and find peace with the decisions they have already made. Cars occupy a unique space in modern life. For most people, a car is one of the most expensive items they will ever purchase, second only to a home. But the relationship goes beyond mere economics. Think about all the hours spent inside a vehicle, the morning commutes, the road trips, the first dates, the drives to the hospital when a child was born, the quiet moments sitting in a parking lot trying to gather courage before a big meeting. A car becomes a container for life itself. This is where the psychology gets interesting. The human brain has a tendency to attach emotional significance to objects, especially ones that are present during important life events. Psychologists call this phenomenon object attachment, and it serves an evolutionary purpose. Our ancestors needed to keep track of valuable possessions, so the brain developed mechanisms to make us care about our belongings. But in the modern world, this ancient wiring can create unexpected emotional complications. When someone owns a car for several years, their brain literally begins to see it as an extension of themselves. Neuroscience research shows that the boundary between self and possession can become blurred. The car is not just something a person owns, it becomes part of how they see themselves. The person who drives a rugged truck might feel that vehicle reflects their practical, hard-working nature. The person with a small, efficient car might see it as an expression of their environmental consciousness or financial wisdom. Selling that car means selling a piece of identity. Even if someone understands intellectually that they are still the same person without that particular vehicle, the emotional brain does not always agree. This creates an internal conflict that manifests as regret. There is also a powerful psychological principle at work called the endowment effect. This effect describes how people assign more value to things simply because they own them. Researchers have demonstrated this countless times in experiments. Give someone an object, then immediately try to buy it back from them, and they will almost always demand more money than they would have been willing to pay for that same object moments earlier. Ownership itself adds perceived value. So when someone sells a car, they are letting go of something their brain has inflated in value. After the sale, they look around at other cars with fresh eyes and think about what they could have bought instead. Or they see their old car being driven by someone else, and suddenly it looks better than they remembered. The new owner has not done anything special to it, but perception has shifted. What once felt like a fair trade now feels like a loss. This connects directly to another psychological concept called loss aversion. The human brain is wired to feel losses more intensely than equivalent gains. Losing $20 hurts more than finding $20 feels good. This asymmetry affects every decision people make, often without them realizing it. When someone sells a car, the brain focuses on what has been lost rather than what has been gained, even if the person received fair market value or desperately needed the money. The timing of regret also follows a predictable pattern. Right after selling a car, most people feel relieved or even excited. They have money in their pocket, or they have eliminated a source of stress like expensive repairs or high insurance payments. But then something shifts. Days or weeks later, the regret creeps in. Why does this happen? The answer lies in how memory works. Human memory is not like a video recording that plays back events exactly as they happened. Instead, memory is reconstructive and heavily influenced by emotion and current context. After selling a car, the brain begins to edit the memories associated with it. The frustrating moments fade, while the good memories become more vivid and emotionally charged. That car that constantly needed repairs is now remembered primarily for the beautiful Sunday drives. The vehicle that barely fit the growing family is now recalled as the car that took everyone on that amazing vacation. Psychologists call this rosy retrospection, the tendency to remember the past more fondly than it actually was. This is the same mechanism that makes people nostalgic for their childhood or their college years, conveniently forgetting the awkwardness, stress, and difficulties of those times. When applied to a sold car, rosy retrospection can create intense regret for a decision that was perfectly reasonable at the time. Another factor that amplifies regret is counterfactual thinking. This is when the mind generates alternative versions of reality, asking what if and if only. What if the timing had been different? What if the car had been kept just one more year? If only there had been more time to think about it. These imaginary scenarios almost always paint a rosier picture than what would have actually happened, because the mind has complete control over these fantasies and naturally makes them appealing. Counterfactual thinking serves a purpose. It helps people learn from past decisions and make better choices in the future. But it can also trap someone in an endless loop of second-guessing and regret, especially when applied to irreversible decisions like selling a car. Social comparison adds another layer to this psychological complexity. Humans are deeply social creatures who constantly compare themselves to others, often unconsciously. After selling a car, someone might see friends or neighbors with similar vehicles and feel a pang of jealousy or regret. Or they might see their actual old car being driven around town by the new owner, which can feel almost like seeing an ex-partner with someone new. The car has moved on, and that movement highlights the permanence of the loss. There's also the phenomenon of the sunk cost fallacy to consider. This is when people continue investing in something because of what they have already put into it, even when walking away would be the smarter choice. In the context of cars, someone might have spent thousands on repairs, custom modifications, or upgrades. Selling the car means those investments are gone, never to be recovered. The rational part of the brain knows that money is already spent and should not influence future decisions, but the emotional brain sees it as waste, which triggers regret. For some people, a car represents freedom and independence. This is especially true for a first car, which often symbolizes the transition to adulthood. Selling that car can feel like giving up a piece of youth or independence, even if the person has other vehicles or has moved on to different life stages. The regret is not really about the car itself, but about what it represented. Interestingly, the type of regret people experience after selling a car often depends on why they sold it. If someone sold a car due to financial pressure or practical necessity, they might experience what psychologists call hot regret, which is immediate and intense. But if someone sold a car as part of an upgrade or lifestyle change, they might experience cold regret, which develops slowly over time as they realize what they have given up. Not everyone who sells a car experiences regret, of course. The difference often comes down to how the decision was made. People who take their time, carefully weigh their options, and feel fully in control of the decision tend to experience less regret afterward. Those who feel rushed, pressured, or uncertain during the sale process are much more likely to second-guess themselves later. Understanding all of this psychology doesn't necessarily make the regret disappear, but it can provide perspective. Recognizing that the brain naturally inflates the value of owned objects, romanticizes the past, and focuses on losses more than gains can help someone see their regret as a normal psychological process rather than evidence that they made a terrible mistake. For anyone currently experiencing regret over a sold car, there are some mental strategies that can help. Consciously remembering the real reasons for selling, including the problems and frustrations that existed at the time, can counteract rosy retrospection. Focusing on what was gained from the sale rather than what was lost can help balance out loss aversion. And recognizing that the perfect alternative scenarios playing out in the mind are fantasies, not realistic predictions, can quiet counterfactual thinking. The relationship between people and their cars will always be complicated because it sits at the intersection of practical necessity, financial investment, and emotional attachment. Cars are simultaneously tools and symbols, expenses and treasures, problems and solutions. When all of these factors combine, it is no wonder that selling one can trigger such complex psychological reactions. Next time you see someone who just sold their car and seems a bit melancholic about it, or if you find yourself in that position, remember that what is happening is perfectly normal. The human brain was not designed for a world where we routinely buy and sell major possessions. It was designed for a world where letting go of something valuable might mean survival or hardship. That ancient wiring still influences modern decisions, creating feelings that can seem out of proportion to the actual situation. Regret over selling a car is really just the brain doing what it was built to do, trying to protect valuable resources and learn from past experiences. Understanding that can make the feeling easier to bear and the next decision easier to make.